What is the future of chemical abortion in the United States, and could it be determined by the Supreme Court soon? Here's the point. While the nation's attention and much of the media was focused on the tragic loss of life and the sudden destruction of the Francis Scott Key Bridge when it was struck by a massive cargo ship in Baltimore, Maryland on Tuesday, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments in the case of U.S. Food and Drug Administration versus Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine, a case that could have massive implications on the abortion industry in the United States. This case is specifically challenging the FDA's more recent move to increase consumer access to mifepristone, one of only 2 abortion drugs currently approved by the FDA. Now, you will have to remember that it was during the COVID-19 pandemic that a series of expansions took place and changed protocol, just as the federal government was working to fast-track and mobilize COVID response. The FDA also widely expanded access to the drug mifepristone, allowing it to be received by mail without a single in-person doctor's visit. Mifepristone could be mailed virtually anywhere in the United States. It was just as recently as 2016 that 3 in-person visits were required to receive the drug mifepristone by doctor's prescription. The FDA's response to COVID-19 changed all of that. Arguing the case before the Supreme Court, Alliance Defending Freedom's senior counsel, Erin Hawley, you'll recognize the name because she is the wife of Missouri Senator Josh Hawley, stated that the primary concern was the FDA's unlawful removal of critical safeguards for the use of chemical abortion drugs. This included in-person doctor visits to check ectopic pregnancies, severe bleeding, and life-threatening infections. It also removed reporting requirements that provided women with critical information about the serious risks associated with the use of mifepristone. In other words, the FDA removed common sense, safety, and protections critical to women's health. According to Hawley, the FDA betrayed women and girls when it removed necessary doctor's visits. And according to the FDA's own label for mifepristone, roughly 1 in 25 women who take these drugs will end up in the emergency room. The president, CEO, and general counsel for ADF, Kristen Wagner, commented further that according to the FDA's own statistics, 7% of women who take mifepristone will require some sort of surgical intervention. And the same FDA that has removed these restrictions also told the public that opioids were safe for the treatment of pain and that there would be a low risk of addiction. While it is not exactly clear where the court will land in this decision, those in favor of the necessary restrictions on access to mifepristone believe that the court is likely to side with the Food and Drug Administration in its final ruling. Now, all of this is coming at a time when the credibility of the FDA is under major public scrutiny for its mishandling and recent reversal of COVID-19 policies and recommendations from back in 2021, when the agency discouraged and advised against the use of ivermectin as an alternative treatment for COVID. Texas doctors sued the FDA in federal court and forced a settlement. The nation's agency for the promotion and protection of health and safety through the control and supervision of health products, including pharmaceuticals, is now being forced to remove social media posts and consumer directives regarding what was disparaging comments for the public from the use of ivermectin, even using snark and sarcasm, comparing patients who would take ivermectin to farm animals. Much has changed since 2021 and 2022, but one thing is clear: the American public is going to be far more suspicious of any public health recommendations from federal agencies that regulate health and safety. This includes the NIH, FDA, and CDC, who are heavily in favor of COVID vaccines, including vaccine mandates, while downplaying the serious and potential risks and side effects of taking these drugs without sufficient consumer data or critical information. Today, Christians must be aware that we bear a responsibility before God when it comes to the protection and defense of health and safety, even as it has significant impact on human life in the womb. And since the Supreme Court's decision in the case of Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization in 2022, chemical abortions have quickly grown to be the leading cause of abortion in the United States. Greater than 54% of all abortions were induced by medication in 2020, when they accounted for less than 6% of abortions nationwide in 2001. That means when we are having public policy debates over abortion as late as 15 and 20 weeks, the majority of abortions in the United States happen before 10 weeks as a result of chemical abortion. Christians cannot punt on this issue. They cannot be silent. I applaud the work of Alliance Defending Freedom and the work of organizations like Abby Johnson's, and then there were none, Kristen Hawkins' Students for Life, and Seth Gruber's White Rose Resistance, among many others who are sounding the alarm on mifepristone and who are being a clear voice of sanity and reason in an age of confusion. But even as we wait to hear the Supreme Court's ruling, let us all pray to see the end of abortion in our country and to see lives saved.